If you redefine employer brand, not as looking good, but as being different, suddenly I can do that with sidewalk chalk.
Hello. I'm Ben Browning, and today I'm excited to be joined by James Ellis, Chief Brand Builder at Employer Brand Labs.
I can do that with a Google slide deck, take my career site URL, point to Google slide deck. By the way, that's all free. And say anything that I need to say. And because it's different, even the fact that it's on a Google presentation slide.
James is a thought leader and innovator who's been at the forefront of employer branding for over a decade. His insights showcased across LinkedIn and YouTube have inspired thousands of recruiters to rethink their strategies and embrace authenticity in recruitment and branding.
PowerPoint thing makes it unusual. It makes it, surprising. It makes it, the channel itself has its own value. Suddenly, a 5-person mom and pop manufacturing facility in wherever the hell, Nebraska.
In this episode, James dives into the transformative power of differentiation, from understanding the critical role of employer branding to creating meaningful connections in a saturated market. James brings a fresh perspective on how to elevate both the candidate and the recruiter experience.
They have an employer brand, provided they're trying to hire someone. They can use their employer brand to say, this is what makes us different. This is what we offer people that you're not going to get other places. This is why you should consider us. That's employer branding. That's where the game is.
So, if you've ever wondered how to go beyond transactional hiring, this will really resonate, whether you're a recruiter, a leader, or simply someone fascinated by the psychology of choice and branding when it comes to hiring. So let's dive in and hear from James. Real quick before we begin. Working with over 1,000 recruiters, I've seen the same thing time and time again. The challenge of always being on a roller coaster of results and just wanting a consistent way to win new, exclusive and retained business. To help figure out how you can get there, I've created a business development assessment, a way to test your strategy. It's a simple process with a few questions designed to give you actionable steps that you need to win consistent business for your agency, whether you're a leader or a top biller. Hundreds of recruiters have already used this assessment to jumpstart their growth, including million-dollar billers. And as a valued listener to the show, I've included a link so you can access it for free right now in the show notes. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please go check it out. And now let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Recruiting Better. This week I'm joined by James Ellis, Chief Brand Builder at Employer Brand Labs, and a guy who's been talking about and working in the space of employer brand for over a decade now. James is a brilliant content creator whose content on both LinkedIn and YouTube is captivating and super interesting. And it can be a message that I believe all recruiters should be tuning into right now. So James, thanks so much for being on the show.
No, thrilled to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Not at all. Straight into this. Why should agency recruiters be thinking about employer brand? And I've taken this conversation today.
That's a big question. And honestly, I very often think about employer brand as the thing that kind of agency recruiters should be most scared of. And there's a couple of reasons why. And the first is this idea that, and I think once you kind of wrap your head around it and embrace this thing that is absolutely true, if we are just honest with ourselves for a minute, it is absolutely true. And that is the model of recruiting that exists today in the world, no one likes. Okay, just take a moment, just take a beat. Recruiters don't like it. I know you're exhausted, you're tired, you're fried, you're burnt out, and you don't feel like you're being taken seriously. Your leadership looks at recruiting and thinks, why is this taking so long? Why isn't this predictable? Why can't I anticipate when a new hire happens? I can look at my sales team and the sales team will tell me what the odds are that a given deal will close. I can predict my revenue. Why can't I predict what you're doing? Recruiting leaders can't do it. I hate doing it because it's exhausting and it's a lot of political juggling of balls. Hiring managers hate it because they think you're just being lazy and doing nothing and throwing requisitions over the fence and saying, you freaking deal with it. I don't care. And you know who hates it the most? Your clients and candidates. They hate everything about hiring and recruiting today. And yet, nothing changes. And yet. And so to me, employer brand is the lever, the maybe not Archimedes, maybe it's Aristotle, who has, give me the lever big enough and I can move the world. Employer brand is the fulcrum of the lever. I can't do the geometry quite so well. But that's the thing that's going to change things because the inclusion and thinking around employer branding is actually anathema to so much of what recruiting is about. If you take a moment and think about what your day-to-day life as a recruiter is, how much of it is sending emails to random strangers who did not expect that email from you, who have no relationship with you, who are getting the same messages from you that they're getting from every other recruiter? What? No, did I say that? Yes, I did. It's okay. No, this isn't scripted. This is just how my brain works. They're getting this stuff all day long, and you're wondering why your conversion rate is like 1%. And sometimes that's being nice. I wonder it's because you're spamming the bejesus out of everything that moves and put up shields and walls to defend itself against the onslaught of the barbarians that are you. Sorry, I say this with love. And consequently, your job is really, really hard because all you're trying to do is break down the walls. And I'm here to tell you that there's this thing called employer brand thinking that says, hey, instead of trying to do what everybody else does, and when I say everybody else does, I mean the same emails, the same outreach, the same subject lines, the same job postings, the same career sites, the way of talking about the jobs, the way of, the expectations of what everybody gets from a recruiter these days. The more you play a game of follow the leader, which, by the way, is a game you're designed not to win. Spoiler, let's remember what the game is. The more you play follow the leader, the less you're going to win. An employer brand is there to say, look, everything about recruiting, and I'm painting with a real broad brush, and I'm saying this out of love, so I'm kind of, you know what I'm saying. Take the pieces that as I'm meaning them, and not as scripture here, but this idea that you're trying to get the widest possible net to stuff the funnel like a goose being turned into foie gras, right? Like you're trying to get as many people excited about this one job, and you're like, wait a second, wait, hold on. Why do I need to get 1 million people excited for this one job when I can only give one person the job? I get that you don't give the job. I get that, okay? I understand that. But why are you pissing off 900,999 people to make one person thrilled? And let's be fair, most people aren't that thrilled when they start a new job. They're like, okay, this could be good because my expectations are low. And I don't believe half of what you said. If half is really being gentle, it's more like 9/10. That's what that's the problem with recruiting, is that everybody's playing this same game. But if you instead think, and this is a very long introductory question. Thanks so much for just giving me this jump ball. If you think instead about, I have the one job and there is a perfect hire for this person. I get that the hiring manager was really flippin' vague with you and is describing this perfect candidate, and it is kind of your job to kind of push a little harder and nudge and ask better questions and get to the heart of the thing, because you recruiter are in fact the expert in the talent market. So thus you should be thinking as a consultant and not as an order taker. I want that for you. So you should do that. And you do that by pushing and asking better questions. And if you can get the hiring manager to tell you what a great candidate looks like, go find them. And when you find them, don't send the exact same spammy bullshit email you send everybody else. Instead say, I know something about you. I've seen your LinkedIn. I've read your articles. I've read your posts. I've read your comments. And I understand that not only can you do this job, that's a given, duh, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think that. But instead, I think you would value this thing about this job that is not on the job posting. It is this sense of, and there's this pause. And that's where I go, that's where the brand lives. This idea of what is different about this job. What are you offering? Are you offering a sense of collaborative culture so that everybody learns from one another and they build something amazing? Fantastic. If you have that, talk about that. Is it a sense of autonomy where this person can be a rock star or a diva and make demands and do things because they are the expert and they decide what they want? Great. You should be talking about that. Do you talk about this sense of support where people can, the 8 hours they spend, and let's be safe, 8 hours they spend at your work are completely and 1000% focused on those 8 hours of work and not the crap that's going on the rest of their lives, because they know their healthcare is taken care of and their insurance is taken care of and all this other stuff is taken care of. Can they focus on that? That's your employer brand. Talk about that. Can you talk about this sense of grand mission, this amazing place you're all going together that nobody else can talk about? That's your brand. You should talk about that. Getting it yet? This is the thing. All of recruiting is so stealing from bad sales. That sense of spam, that email you get every morning, you're like, oh, I should have subscribed for that stupid email. That's how all your candidates feel. That's what they feel when they see your name popping up on their email and their inbox and whatever. They're like, oh, I should have unsubscribed from this dude. Oh man, I can't believe it. They want out because you're not offering anything that's unique or different. unusual from everybody else. You sound like everybody else. Thanks so much for listening. That's my 10 minutes, and I'll see you later.
Incredible clip there. We've got so many different kind of threads, I think, that are super useful for this conversation, right? It's clearly differentiation,
good.
Absolutely huge. The fact that, that starting point, why should recruiters be tuning into this episode and listening to what we're talking about here? Well, the very first point you made was because everybody hates the way that recruitment goes down. So we really need to think about that. Like, you're that really head on. And I think that a lot of people I talk to are maybe shy around that. But even if it's slightly hyperbolic, like, let's just work from that place, like work for the people. If we work for the people who do hate it, we're not going to end up like going too far wrong.
You're, I don't know, the canary in the coal mine, or the ultimate metric is that you want your candidates to know exactly what they're getting into on day one and have a good, strong, believable sense of what day 100 is going to feel like. And too much of recruiting is, I have this data science, project manager, nursing, electrician job. Do you want it? And you're like, but okay, I always joke, and I don't, I know that, we're on different sides of a very large pond, as it were, that I live in a world where Glassdoor for so long was driving the conversation about this score, this one number, like Moses with stone tablets. This one number will dictate the value of your entire, like, bullshit. It is not. Your Glassdoor score has nothing to do with what your company is. The entirety of your Glassdoor score is how well you have set and met expectations. You want to tell people this is a really hard job and you're going to work really, really hard and you're going to push yourself and other people are going to push you and there are going to be days of frustration, but the end result is X and Y and Z, and you get that 4 or 5 stars. You tell people it's puppy dogs and daisies and tickle fights and everybody's rosy and blue skies all day long and you get one bad day at 1 star. It's about expectation setting. And recruiters need to embrace this idea that their job is actually to set the expectation. It's not to sell. It's to say, look, the expectation is you'll be doing these kinds of things. You'll be doing this kind of work in this kind of environment, in this kind of culture, in this kind of space. This is what the expectations are. You're expected to deliver something in day 30 or day 300 or whatever that thing is. And I want to show you how what I know about you is a good fit for delivering those things, because there's all of that soft language and soft ideas that are never stated very well. It's all about, it's a go get 'em culture. It's aggressive and blah, 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 blah. Your job as the recruiter is to be the Rosetta Stone between what the hiring manager has in their brain and what the candidate's going, all I see are data points and bullets. All I see is bullshit on the job posting and the career site. You tell me what I need to know. That's the job. And if you do that, if you set proper expectations, candidates will go, hell yeah, I want that job. And I guess I'm going to ask you this. When's the last time you got that kind of response there, friend? Have you? Because you should be, because you're changing people's lives. You're changing people's lives. And not because there's a new number on their salary line and not the new, big old number on their paycheck, but because you are literally changing their lives. And if they can't walk into a life-changing question without a wholehearted hell yeah, then you're missing the point. So do that. And that's how you know that hiring is broken, because we do not see a lot of hell yes at all.
I hear that's such a great question, such a great framing of this, because I think also then what we also tend to see when I work with recruiters who are looking to go through this process of shifting from a transactional kind of approach to a transformational approach and helping their clients kind of turn hiring into something that looks and feels more like a competitive advantage rather than a kind of corporate handbrake, we really see those individuals, right, presenting business opportunity for the individuals. But the key metric here, what I see, I wonder what your kind of thoughts on this are, is new hire engagement. This is a person coming into their first 100 days. And, we've seen study after study about how much impact that can have on their long-term productivity and engagement. But it feels like one of potentially the metrics that you might look at. Right.
Yeah, you look at a Goldman Sachs, and there's no shortage of stories and articles and legend about how hard it is to work at Goldman Sachs and how long the work weeks are. I'm talking 100-hour work weeks, and let's be fair, those junior people are not paid particularly well if you factor in how many hours they're working. Right? It's a hard job, and you think, oh wow, when those articles came out, that's savage blow to one's employer brand. And I'm going to tell you right now, Goldman Sachs did not have a single problem hiring. Not only, let me rephrase that. Is Goldman Sachs still the number one choice among a great deal of the top quarter of people graduating from the greatest schools in the world? Yes. There it is. It's not about good, bad. It's not about wonderful culture, good, bad culture. It's not about any of that stuff. It's not about hard work. And it's not about work from home. It's not about working in the office. It's simply, do you present a clear and credible expectation of what you can expect in this job? And that doesn't just mean like how you work with your manager. In Goldman Sachs' case, we all know. We all know. And even if it's not clearly stated, because it doesn't have to be, because we all know it like we all know gravity works. We all know that if you turn 40 at Goldman Sachs, you're a millionaire. Like, I'm sure the person who runs, who pushes the brooms around all day to sweep up at the end of the day, I'm sure they're very wealthy with enough hours there, right? That is the promise. That is the value proposition, or maybe even one might call it an employer value proposition. I don't know. I don't want to get too pedantic into these things, but that is what the deal is. Not, hey, this is a great place to work. What the hell does that mean? Because no one's going to accuse Goldman Sachs of being a great place to work. Objectively, it sounds like a hellhole from which there may be only the escape is death and or fire and or being rich. Your choice, pick it, right? That sounds like an objectively horrible place to work for most people, myself included, but they can just as easily buy that ad and buy that award as anybody else, including a place where you're going to work for exactly 36 and a half hours a week. And there's so much insurance, and we take care of each other, and we're collaborative, and we're friendly, and we're wonderful, and we sing Kumbaya, and we hold hands every day during lunch. Like, those are both places that have great cultures. And if those two things are both great, what the hell does great mean? And yet, most recruiters, most hiring managers, most employer branders, for goodness sake, lean on these things as if they mean something. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm old. I've had some jobs. I've had some good jobs. I've had some bad jobs. And from the outside, they looked exactly the same. And they weren't actually good jobs and bad jobs. They were just good jobs and bad jobs, ... for me as an individual, as a human being, as one of many, but the only one that is me. It was perfect or it was horrible for me. But because we communicate in this cogs and screws and, codified and commoditized world of, hey, it's a great job, it's a great culture, it's great, 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 great. How do you know? And if you don't know, if you as a candidate who has a choice, if you don't know, why would you choose? Why would you make that choice? Why would you make that leap from a job that you're like, look, I don't love it, but at least I know what the heck it is. I know exactly what I've gotten into, but I know it's the devil I know, as it were. Why on earth would I take that one? Oh, look, I'm sure that recruiter is delightful. I'm sure they're a wonderful person. I'm sure puppies love them. I'm sure that they give to charity and have said nothing but wonderful things about their mom. I'm sure that job is great, except I don't know what that means. So it's safer in this middling job where I'm like, look, the fire has not lit under my butt yet enough for me to take a leap into an unknown, which is what recruiters should be trying to avoid. That is where the challenges are.
We've made a great case for why people should engage in this conversation and engage in employer branding here.
I think I've had the conversation at the same time.
Ms. James, how do you know this?
I would say, if I'm looking back, there's a couple of pieces that I would say if you did a recipe for James, and don't do this. No, there's barely enough room for me to exist and survive. Don't need multiples of me. It is an absolute love of marketing. Like, I've read almost every marketing book there is. I think it's fascinating. I have an MBA. I studied. I did all the stuff, the classic foundation of marketing. And what I have that's unusual, I think, from many other marketers is that I found this little niche and I realized what was different. I don't think most marketers who come into employer branding have had this same kind of like, oh, it's like that. And that's the idea that as a marketer, my job is more. I want more leads. I want more eyeballs. I want more impressions. I want more clicks. I want more visits. I want more share of wallet. I want more share of shelf space. I want more. Sing from the chorus of more. Open your hymnals to page more, because that is what we will be singing forever. And that's great. And that's their job. And that's what they're supposed to be doing. So I'm not being antagonistic to them, right? That's their job. But if you lift and shift that thinking over to recruiting side, and you think what you need is more applications and more candidates, A smart recruiter goes, ein Minuten bitte. I don't think so. Are you sure? Did you check the math there? Can we double check that? Because the truth is you have a role. That means you can put one person in it, which means you need not just a lot of people. What you really need is the best person. And so it's the same kind of thinking of persuasion and understanding their valuation, understanding motivations, understanding humans, which is really all marketing really is understanding what drive people to do whatever the hell it is they do all day. Applying it to recruiting, which is about, look, there's only one job, so I'm trying to find the best person. So let's figure out what the best match is. And it creates this idea of it's quality, not quantity, that in sales, every dollar is a good dollar. In recruiting, every candidate is not a good candidate. And once you embrace that, truly embrace that, you realize that you can take all the smart thinking from marketing world, drop it over recruiting, but you have so much refactoring and rethinking and reapplication of these core ideas to a model in which, better is best and not more is best. That is me. That is how that's kind of the simple kind of formula for everything I look at. And I look at, here's a good example. I'm looking at a job posting and I like it a lot. And I have to ask myself, why do I like it? And I think it's because this job posting is not trying to be the end all be all to all people. This is another wonderful place to work, a delightful place. Everybody's going to love this place. But instead, it feels like it's speaking to an individual. It feels like it's speaking maybe to me, but maybe not. It just certainly feels like if I closed my eyes for a hot minute and looked at this and thought, who is this speaking to? I could probably envision that person pretty clearly. I might be off, doesn't matter. But if it feels like I'm speaking to an individual, that is far more compelling than a billboard that says we have jobs, right? That doesn't work. And so that's the kind of thinking I have. Now, what's interesting about employer branding, and again, for your side of the pond, employer branding's been around for 30, 31 years now, so it's old hat to some extent, but it has made some evolutionary shifts. So you go back to Richard Simon Barrow and about this idea that how we sell fish fingers is how we're going to sell jobs. And at the time, mind-blowing, genius, of course, duh. Why have we never think of this before? And all the accolades and all the wonderful things that happened to Simon, who is incredibly smart, and thank goodness he thought that stuff. And after a couple of years, you kind of go, okay, we've applied all the fish finger selling stuff to our jobs, and the internet shows up. And suddenly you have access to all this information. And you're like, oh, wow. Candidates now know infinitely more today than they did 20 years ago when it was just a P.O. box or a line item in a newspaper on the Sunday paper, the Sunday Times or whatever about, oh, we have a job, send your resume to this or CV to this place, cognizant of your audience and cognizant of where you are. It's all the same. Now it's a world in which you say, what's it like to work inside there? And I have lots of little holes I can poke into the castle walls, and it's Twitter and it's Glassdoor and it's friend of mine I found at LinkedIn who knows a guy who works there. So I will talk to them directly and hear from the horse's mouth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so consequently, employer brand is no longer come up with a tagline, come up with a reason to show up, which is how you sell fish fingers. Now it's about, we're a great place. We're a good place. Show how attractive you are. It's in a world where if you have an attractive career site, you have a real advantage. And that was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, back when a creative, attractive, parallax view on websites were like, oh, cool, dude. Like it was sexy. It was fun. It was crazy. And that was enough to kind of get some views and generate that interest, people a click. Well, now everybody's got a decent career site. Now everybody's got ChatGPT and they're running their job posting through. So everybody knows it's got to be looking pretty good. Everybody buys that award and everybody does, and everybody and everybody and everybody. And so what we found is that employer branding went from making a claim, becoming attractive, and now we're in the world of employer branding being all about how do I show that I'm different? How do you choose me over all other options? How do you find a lid for that pot? How do I not get 1 million applicants, but 2, and one of them is a perfect hire. The other one is almost a perfect hire. So I don't feel like my hiring manager doesn't feel like that I'm wasting their time. It's about differentiation. And that is the world of employer brand we're in now. The problem is there's very little written about that stuff. And a lot of people are still going, I have to make it look attractive. So I'm looking at the job posting and I'm asking other employer branders, what do you think about this? And people are like, oh, it's really long. What does that mean? Why is that a problem? He goes, oh, because we all know long job postings aren't as read as well and aren't as useful. Is that true? Right? Is that true? If I have a job posting that's well written, that's engaging, it's smart, it's clearly speaking to someone who kind of sort of sounds like me, Do I need it to be shorter? Is that a good thing? Like if we made Star Wars 30 minutes, is that a better Star Wars? Is The Godfather at 47 minutes a better Godfather? Is Titanic at an hour and 20 a better Titanic? I don't think so. But I think so much of the dogmatic thinking about we got to look good says make it smaller, make it tighter. It's not about saying anything interesting. No. We're just about looking good. And I think we're in a world now where yeah, you got a great looking website. Who cares? You got a great looking job posting. Who cares? Short, long, I don't care. Bullets, no bullets, don't care. Is it speaking to me about something I can't get anywhere else? That is where the game gets played.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fantastic synopsis of kind of that shift. And I love the way you talk about that. Look, we see it all the time in the idea around helping recruiters win their clients, actually, because one of the exercises that I often take people through really early in our programs is how many clients do you actually need? Now, the answer is usually more than one, which is very different from employer brand from that perspective. It's rarely more than 15. So when recruiters have got a list of 1,000 companies that they're going after trying to win business from, it's like, well, like if we focus on maybe trying to win 3%, then we don't really need that many people to go after. We don't need that many contacts to go after. And if we want 5% or 10%, then wow, then we're in a really different place. So yeah, this speaks to kind of language that I'm seeing elsewhere, but also again reinforcing this point around differentiation. Which brings me to another question.
Before we get to that, I want to kind of tack on to this idea that so much of the reason that is because our heroes are massive. Like how many rooms have you been in? How many meetings have you personally been in where all the people kind of were struggling with the problem and there was this pause where everybody kind of went, oh, I feel stymied. And someone chimed in. Wait, you're saying it with me now because you know what I'm about to say. How does Google do it?
Yeah, right.
Who cares? Are you Google? If you're not Google, who cares how Google does it? That's not interesting or useful information, right? That's like saying I'm building a model airplane. I wonder how Boeing and Airbus make planes. I'm sorry, who cares? That is not applicable in any way, shape, or form, but it's so safe to say no one gets fired for choosing IBM. No one gets fired for copying what Google does. And thus we all think, and the internet's filled with idiots and jerks who are just like, I got 4 trillion followers on LinkedIn. Here's my method to making money on LinkedIn. I'm like, yeah, is the method to sell to people who want to make money on LinkedIn, right? Is that, because no one else is making money on these social channels except people who are trying to make it so that you can make money. It's just, you're just selling shovels to people who want to dig for gold. That's where the real money is. It ain't in the gold. It's in selling of shovels. Yeah. That is our biggest challenge. We have the wrong heroes. I want recruiters to understand that the best work to be following are the weirdos, are the unusual, are the people who are willing to zig when everybody else is saying, everybody's going to be on blue sky. Good for you. I bet there's a recruiter out there who still exists on fax machine. I bet there's one still out there. And I bet that there's phenomenally successful with the 1,000 fax machines left in the world, but they're the only ones tapping into them, right? If you can find the outliers, if you can't find the outliers, you've got to be an outlier because that's where success is.
Well, it's a fascinating tangent to kind of piece to bring into the puzzle because the question I was going to ask you there, James, is not a tangent at all. The question I was literally going to ask you is employer brand just for bigger companies.
Oh God, no.
And so you've absolutely
God,
kind of answer the question.
And here's
right
the thing. And that's the thing is if you're big, if you're AT&T, Bank of America, Google, Boeing, whatever, you have an employer brand designed around getting maximum people to like you, to feel something about you. And of course, I put a big asterisk next to that by saying, and let's remember, Google has no employer brand team. They've never needed one because everybody uses Gmail and everybody uses Google. And they've existed in this fun bubble called called brand halo, which no one else has. So you can't copy them doing those things, whatever, separate conversation. But in that model where employer brand was about looking good, it required money to make that happen. You had to come up with a tagline that was crisp and sharp and said something and punchy. And then you had to splash it on every single social channel. And you had to buy, visual arts and video cameras and career sites that cost $40,000 and $400,000. Sometimes I've seen a couple of those. You got to spend all this money to slap that we're good on everything that moves. if you redefine employer brand, not as looking good, but as being different, suddenly I can do that with sidewalk chalk. I can do that with a Google slide deck, take my career site URL, point to Google slide deck. By the way, that's all free. And say anything that I need to say. And because it's different, even the fact that it's on a Google presentation slide, PowerPoint thing, makes it unusual. It makes it, surprising. It makes it, the channel itself has its own value. Suddenly, a 5-person mom and pop manufacturing facility in wherever the hell in Nebraska, they have an employer brand, provided they're trying to hire someone. They can use their employer brand to say, this is what makes us different. This is what we offer people that you're not going to get other places. This is why you should consider us. That's employer branding. That's where the game is.
Yeah, that makes such good sense. Your role commonly is, and as I said right in the intro, kind of enjoyed a lot of your content where you talk about building a 3-dimensional employer brand, right? So I wonder if there are any kind of key tenets or elements of that perhaps we haven't yet touched on in the conversation that you think maybe it would be worth kind of walking us through that model of what a 3D employer brand looks like.
Yeah, happy to. And I wish I could claim ownership of this idea. I'm a magpie just like everybody else, and I'm stealing stuff from everything that moves. But where I'm living now is this idea that, as we mentioned, recruiters aren't particularly credible, right? There is the whole kind of used car salesperson, what's it going to take to get you in this job, spamming everything that moves, that analog of this is how recruiting is supposed to be, which we're all going to go ahead and agree is wrong, and you shouldn't do that. If we're moving into a world where it's about being different and being credibly different, you have to provide credibility. Now, on step 1, that level of credibility is being willing to say something true. So if I were to introduce you to my friend Elena, and Elena is smart, she's attractive, she's funny, she's successful, she's she's kind to animals, she's got a great wit, she's she really has a great friend. At some point, I'm going to pile on this list of all the reasons Elena is great, and Elena is a real person. Hey, Elena. At some point, you're going to brain naturally, just the human reptile monkey brain is going to say, wait. What's the catch? Because that's how we are. We're human. We're suspicious. We're trying to avoid being eaten by leopards on the prairie, right? So we are suspicious of even the things that sound delightful. And there's the second your brain says, what's the catch? Something amazing happens. And that is your brain stops adding value for every positive thing you say and starts to say, this is not adding value. This is obfuscating. This is hiding something true. And the more you pile and the more you obfuscate, the brain goes, oh, it is hiding something bad. Oh, is Elena racist? Is Elena a murderer? Did Elena vote for the wrong person? Elena must be the worst person. And you're just kind of hiding. Now, that's not true. If I said Elena's great, she's smart, she's funny, she's attractive, she's successful, she's got this kind of woo-woo thing that I always find so strange, and I don't always know what to do with it. She's got that kind of vibe to her. But beyond that, she's da-da-da-da-da. I've introduced a negative fact, sort of. Right? It's not like, oh my God, she's a horrible person. She's like, hey, this is a weird thing. And to be fair, I don't always know what to do with that, Elena. And you know that about me. So it's not like this is a surprise. But by introducing this thing that's like, it's not perfect, everything I'm adding on is positive, and you're like, okay, that must be good. By introducing a single element of willingness to say the thing that's true, the more credible my claims are. So you're a recruiter. You should try this job. The company's fantastic. The stock is going up. The manager's fantastic. They've written books about how to be a great manager. The product they're building is fantastic. The office is amazing. You're going to get great computers. Your coworkers, at some point, what's the catch shows up. And there you are. It's got great benefits. It's got a great culture. It's got great. And the candidate, who, by the way, did not come to you. You came to them. You interrupted their life. They're now going, oh, this is crap. That's the game. So you have to be credible, and to start, you say something negative. Now, that's level 1. Level 2 to this is, once you're willing to say something negative, you realize that negativeness isn't just the pinch of salt you put in the brownie to make the chocolate taste chocolatier, right? It's not the bitterness you add to make the sweet more sweet. It is, in fact, more useful than that you can say, if there's something negative about this job, and spoiler, There's something negative about every job. There's no such thing as a perfect job. Let's just stop it. Just stop it. There's something bad about every job. Your job as a recruiter is to identify what that thing is, not just because you're going to use it to kind of sprinkle the salt in the brownie to make it better, but simply because if it's true, and chances are it's true, if it's true, why aren't you talking about it? Why aren't you using it to support the claim you're trying to make? Here's an example. I show up to a company's Glassdoor page and it says, this place is slow. Man, it is slow. It takes so long to make a decision. Nothing ever feels like it's ever getting done. It's just, I mean, you have to get 17 signatures. Like, even the jokes in the office of, you always underestimate how long you think it's going to be because it's always way more than you think it's going to be. It's insanely slow. It's insanely, everybody has an opinion. It's just a horrible place to work. Now, it's all true. So I'm not going to claim that person's a liar. Not at all, because there are places like that. But my job as the employer brander is to say, if that's the negative, what is that the shadow to? And the shadow to that might be, this place is incredibly collaborative. It's so collaborative that we don't want to take a step forward until everybody has had their chance to have a say about what's going on, feels connected to the larger direction and the execution, the steps forward. And because of that, it's slow, but every single person feels like they have their hands on the rock pushing in the exact same direction. Every single person has an impact. It matters.
Yeah, right.
Wait a second. What happened there? How did I just turn a 1-star review into a 4-star review? No. But what I did is I said, I'm going to take your negative and show how it's actually a positive to certain people. You're right. Someone like me, and I've worked this job, so I know exactly what company I'm speaking of. I have it in my head. I will not name names. Just saying. But it was so like, oh my God, why is this taking so long? We all know what the right answer is, but you're waiting for 2 more people to chime in with their, like, oh, are you kidding me? And for me, it was a nightmare job. But for some people, and they all worked there, they loved that. They love that sense of, we're not cutting each other's throats. We're not being political. We're all in agreement in this direction, or we don't do it. It is absolutely aligned. I feel engaged. I feel like the person standing next to me, I trust, because we are all in agreement of where we're all taking this thing. And for them, that value is infinitely greater than the pain of the speed. Me, I evaluate that completely differently because it's not a job for me. I'd be horrible at that job. But you just take the thing that makes this company negative and go, if it is true, it is the shadow effect. It is the reverse angle of something that's probably really positive, right? I worked at Roku. It was all about autonomy, and all the reviews were like, this place is chaotic. Well, you can't have one without the other, right? You can't have a tall guy who isn't always bopping his head on things, right? That's just the nature of being tall. You can't have someone short who is complaining that the cabinets are too tall. Like, that's the nature of being tall or short. That's the nature of being collaborative. That's the nature of being innovative. That's the nature of being whatever it is. There is a negative side for someone. And so for me, I love when I do building employer brands. Yes, I'm asking why it's different, but I'm also asking what's bad about this place, because that to me is the great clue as to how to present this so that because I do want to sprinkle the salt in the brownie mix to make it taste better. I can point to this thing that's true and say, look, it's a little bit chaotic, but because of that, you're still so much innovation. And to someone who wants innovation, who cares about chaos? That sounds fantastic. That's exactly what I want. And too often, and this is going all the way back full circle to what we were first talking, if you're trying to appeal to everyone, you end up taking the rough edges off of all of it, the good and the bad. And so consequently, you sound like everybody. But you don't want everybody. If you're selling this job about innovation, you want someone who wants innovation, who is obsessed with innovation, who understands that there's a downside to that innovation and has completely accepted it. And it doesn't sound like a deal killer like it does to you, or it does to someone who wants collaboration. It's about, this is what they want. And I think so much of recruiting is about, I don't want to scare anybody off because they might be a good fit. Like, no, they're not. Anybody you scared off was a horrible fit. Shut up. You got to focus on who you actually want to talk to and put all your eggs in that basket.
I love it. I was lucky enough to also welcome onto the show a guy called Todd Capone, an author called Todd Capone, a couple of years ago, who wrote a book called The Transparency Sale and also a follow-up book called The Transparent Sales Leader. And Todd talks about this concept explicitly. In that first book in particular, he talks really about this kind of idea that what he's found through his studies was that products rated 4.2 to 4.8 on a 5-star scale sold better than products rated above that number, right?
Exactly, because above that, it's crazy. No, but you think anybody who's got a 5-star review, they're faking it, right? I always joke that if you find a Glassdoor score of 5 stars, that's a cult. That's not a company. That's a cult. Bear that in mind. And you're right. I've used the exact same data to prove that it's this idea of there's no such thing as perfect. And if you try to find perfect, you are deluding yourself. And so be willing to see that everything is imperfect. It's about finding the right match.
Well, I love your framing of this as well, James, where we're effectively saying that not only, and I appreciate, this is kind of both your framing and maybe from the literature a little bit as well, right? But
yes. I mean, I stole it. You might as well steal stuff too.
Yeah, 100%. But we, every time we layer on more positives, we're actually not increasing the excellence of the proposition. We're actually increasing the risk, actually, like the doubt. It really feels like every item increases. To me, like the impression I was getting from what you were saying was like, it's just riskier and riskier. Almost like, if I trust this, then I'm more vulnerable than if the opportunity is maybe more real, more salty, right? More kind of balanced, then I'm not actually setting myself up or letting myself be kind of quite so crushed or heartbroken when it does turn out that actually this job is just a job.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing is that, we've been all kind of deluded into thinking that everybody wants a mission. And that's not just us. That's not just recruiters. Like last 5 years of marketing has been nothing but purpose driven. Buy this beer or buy this toilet paper because we care about blah, 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 blah. That's not how anybody chooses beer or toilet paper. I'm sorry. And marketing has figured that out finally. So they are kind of, swinging it the other direction. But we are still, because they're jobs. And look, recruiters are people. I know that some people will disagree, but I'm pretty sure they're all people. And they want to feel good about the work that they're doing. And sometimes the best way to do that is to make it feel like they turn up the purpose and value and the mission of a company. It's like, look, we're not just selling cell phones. We are providing telecommunication infrastructure to an audience that is desperate for it. And you play the strings behind it, right? You go, you play that. And it all sounds like, it's meaningful. It's freaking cell phones or mobiles, right? It's just a freaking job. So to me, when I think about that stuff, I have a kind of a framework that says, when you're building your brand, you're trying to build that difference. And people go, okay, well, how do I find that difference? For me, you start your mission and goal, right? There are certain companies for whom they have incredibly clear, valuable, pull it up the flagpole, see who salutes it kind of missions. And, a SpaceX is a perfect example. If you want to do the work of getting humanity to Mars, where else are you going to go? That's a compelling mission. Is your cell phone provider a compelling mission? No. So and honestly, only maybe like 3 to 5% of companies have a mission so compelling that you're willing to ignore the other stuff. And SpaceX is another good example of that, because not only are they have that strong mission, the other things ain't that great, as you'll see, right? Just go, and that's not me saying, that's Glassdoor saying. So I'm just saying. So if you don't have a good mission, and that's fine, you go to experience. What's the day-to-day at work like? What's is it work from home? Is it coming to the office? Is it hybrid? Is it you've got managers who leave you alone? And you've got managers who really want to, help you grow? Is it managers who are micromanagers? And they're all good for somebody. Somebody wants that stuff. It's how well are you supported? How much autonomy do you have? How much, it's everything. Everything that happens in the office, from do they serve you lunch and is it good, to what is the, how good are the all staff meetings? Like, it's all of it, the experience. I think about 30% of companies live here, where they can find something different about how they work together. How do they resolve problems? How they find solutions? How they innovate? How they do what they do all day long. And for everybody else, there's this other big bucket called reward. So it goes goal, experience, reward. And for companies who are not willing to differentiate in the first two buckets, you are left in the world of, well, you just got to pay for it then, don't you? And now I'll say there's an asterisk there that says it's not just about salaries. It can be you're paid in status, you're paid in professional development, you're paid in access to clientele, you're paid in building your resume such that you can get the next job where you get everything you want, whatever that is. But if you can't figure out how you have a differentiated mission or a differentiated work experience, you've got to figure out how you're differentiated in the reward structure. And it kind of trickles in that direction, right? Goldman Sachs has no problem paying people because that's the game. So they don't have to worry about their mission. It's making people rich, making rich people richer, I guess is more accurate, or the experience, which is hellacious. So they don't have to worry about that because they're just going to pay for it all anyway. So you got to find the spot in which your offering, your company is different. And as an agency recruiter, you kind of have that framework creates a kind of shorthand because you don't have the time to do a full-on EVP project for every one of your clients. And if you did, what would you do all day long? And even my model, which builds employer brands in 3 or 4 weeks, which is kind of insanely fast, but you don't have that kind of time. So if you think about in these 3 buckets, when you're talking to the hiring manager, ask them, is there something about your mission that is so different that people were willing to forego anything positive about the experience or the reward? No. Well, let's talk about the work experience. What is something differentiating in the work experience sector that is so differentiating and so valuable to someone that they don't mind that you're not paying at the very, 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 very top of the market? Oh, well, we do, but. Congratulations. You have just used employer brand thinking to uncover some very simple ideas that will allow you to set your jobs and your opportunities at a different position so that you're not like everybody else. You're not just offering yet another data science leader job. You're offering something specifically different. And with that information, you then go to your Boolean searches and your LinkedIns and your networks and all the other stuff that magical stuff that you do all day and go, not her, not him, not her. Whoa, she wants this. Not, could she do the job? Because any one of those people could do the job. But that her is going to love. Is going to have a full-on hell yes when they get what I'm about to tell them. All right. Now, what do? I go to LinkedIn. I came across your profile and I thought your experience was really... No. Throw that away. Hey, look, I know you get these messages all the time, but I'm going to tell you you're the only person I'm talking to about this specific role because I know something about you that you are going to want to see in this job. Holy crap. If you got that email, you're opening it immediately. Okay, and then you write a little more detail about what this is. You're a recruiter. You have this job. You think that they are the perfect candidate for this thing. You are not talking to other people. You are not spamming the bejesus at everything that moves on a LinkedIn profile. You are talking to them because you know something about them and you know something about this job. And your job is to be a matchmaker, not a salesperson. And that's what you're doing. They will. You think your 1% conversion rate is going to go up? Oh, you have no idea. You have no clue. That's how employer brand thinking makes agency recruiters' jobs. I won't say easy. I will never, ever call a recruiter easy. I will never call recruiting easy. Someone complained that I do. I'm like, I never do. But it will make it more effective, and that will make it a little easier.
Wow. Fantastic. Brilliant. James, I absolutely love that model. I know the recruiters listening to the show, will be making notes on that, will be thinking about that, because you're absolutely right. That 3-phase process, that framework that you've described, really helps give real clarity, actually, to a new level of clarity to something I've thought about as part of my work for such a long time, but that really, really helps. I think the recruiters dialing in on that 3-step framework will really be able to unlock some value. So thank you so much.
I hope
for sharing.
it's a helpful heuristic to kind of get to shortcut your way to something better. That, sure, if you had 4 months, you could build something amazing and compelling and perfect, but then it's worthless the next day and you didn't charge for it. So you don't do that. But it's a good heuristic to kind of get you to a place where you can stand out and say something different and true about the job. And, and so that the candidate who wants that can hear you, can find you, and you can create that connection way more effectively.
Yeah. 100%. I think also, like, just for recruiters who go out and start asking those questions to their clients are just going to stand out massively as well. There's a real opportunity to say, we're not just talking about employer brand in a kind of amorphous kind of, wouldn't it be nice to be more liked? But actually, no. I mean, I think there's so many lessons here, so many elements to what you've described that will really help recruiters describe employer brand from a more informed and empowered position that I know people are going to take a whole lot of value from this episode. So, James, I'm so grateful to you for being on the show. And thank you for sharing everything you have.
No, this has been fantastic. Thanks for letting me vent and talk a little bit.
Yeah, not at all. We'll find you, James.
Well, obviously, I'm on LinkedIn like everybody else. I kind of live on it. It's been pinging at me while we've been talking, and I've been doing a real good job ignoring it. I just want to Hold on, pat myself in the back for that. Not everybody can do that, and neither can I. But employerbrandlabs.com. But I think if you're interested in what I'm talking about as an idea, you don't need to hire me if you don't want to. If you're agency recruiter, why would you? But if you want more thinking about this stuff, go to employerbrand.ing, employer branding. All of my free and not so free resources are there. So it's videos, podcasts, ebooks, downloads, courses, articles, you name it. It's all there to download. The handful of things that are chargeable, like books. But for the most part, 98% of it is free. So go take a look and learn some stuff. And then if it's interesting, come find me. We'll talk and see how we can help each other.
Amazing. James, thanks so much for being on the show. And I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben. Have a great rest of your day.